Hello everyone, it's Cheryl Millett here, live at 5 on a beautiful Thursday. And why not? Why not it be a beautiful Thursday? I wanted to come on for a number of reasons, but one I just want to say is when we're thinking about interacting, whether this event, whether it's the post I posted the other day, is that we are, how can I say it, mindful of the differences, or mindful of the opinions, mindful of what yet certain people don't understand about each other, where they're coming from, and that's basically it. I mean, we can get more complicated about that, but people are vulnerable during this time, partially because of the fear. Now we have to understand fear in itself. Fear is sometimes created for us, whether it's wars, whether it's this event, but it's created out there. And it's created because we see loved ones pass, or we see loved ones die due to labels that the medical community gives upon the things that we have in any medical book, because labels are important for them to communicate and to understand and to learn and to teach. But there is one important factor here, and that is the mention of the word science. So I'm going to kind of take off my acting like a fool hat at times, which is just kind of putting things out there. I don't see too much into any of this, maybe like some other people do. And of course, when people are pushing their ideas and pushing their beliefs and their opinions in a way that yeah, we shouldn't be talking to anybody like that. But the idea is, I think one of the fallacies that is very common out there is, what is science? And I brought out my trusty book here, and I know I've brought it up, but who knows who's listened to me read it, who's listened to me kind of communicate about science. And this is a fellow that's probably in line with Einstein. Now Einstein, if for some of you that don't know, some of his theories have been disproven. I guess that's the easy way to say. But what I like about Richard Feynman, now it's in this book, so I mean, if you ever want to get this, it's just very short book here. Richard Feynman, maybe that's how they say it, Essentials of Physics Explained by Its Most Brilliant Teacher. Now, like I said, this fella was likened to an Einstein, very bright. And I want to read a piece from here because I really want to ground us in what is science. And then I looked up some quotes of his, and he taught, I believe, at Berkeley. Let's just see if there's a very quick, there's a whole page of books and things that he has written. Let's just see if it actually has a quick thing around him. Now there's a huge introduction, and in and amongst there is that, but I believe he taught at Berkeley and known to be very, very bright in the science community. In fact, when people talk about science, and you know, if the science is not showing it, if the science is not there, I don't believe it. And I ask them if they know this person, and they go, oh yeah, he's brilliant, he's like Einstein. If they know anything about him, they will not worship him. And I don't mean for any of us to worship anything or anybody, or even how brilliant they are. But the idea was, he tapped in a way to explain science, but to make sure people understood the science, its limitations. So I'm going to read a few paragraphs, and then I'm going to go over his quotes. So what I'm going to try to do is take out any, probably for this particular live at 5, I'm going to take out any, it's not about opinions. And if you understand enough about science, if you understand enough about life, you can, like science, you can think you know what's going to happen tomorrow. You can think you know exactly as you planned your trip and it's going to turn out, and it turns out nothing like it. And this is a little bit likened to this, so you can probably bring this into life, not just science as well. He goes on, Richard here was talking about a particular comparison, let's say, with the, just as sciences, they're observers looking at things, and you have just a couple of different things, but you really try to narrow it down so that you can better understand things. So at times he was saying here, well, we hope that we may be able to reduce the number of different things and thereby understand them better. Now, not know them better, but understand them better. So let me just read this few paragraphs here. A few hundred years ago, a method was devised to find partial answers to such questions. Observation, reason, and experiment make up what we call the scientific method. Observation, reason, experiment make up what we call the scientific method. We shall have to limit ourselves to the bare description of our basic view of what is sometimes called fundamental physics or fundamental ideas, which have arisen from the application of the scientific method. What do we mean by understanding something? We can imagine that this complicated array of moving things which constitutes the world is something like a great chess game being played by the gods, and we are the observers of the game. We do not know what the rules of the game are. All we are allowed to do is to watch the playing. Of course, if we watch long enough, we may eventually catch on to a few of the rules. The rules of the game are what we mean by fundamental physics. Even if we knew every rule, however, we might not be able to understand why a particular move is made in the game, merely because it is too complicated and our minds are limited. If you play chess, you must know that it is easy to learn all the rules, and yet it is often very hard to select the best move or to understand why a player moves as he does. So it is in nature, only much more so. But we may be able to at least find most of the rules, all the rules, some of the rules. Actually, we do not have all the rules now. Every once in a while, something like castling is going on that we still do not understand. And aside from not knowing all of the rules, what we really can explain in terms of those rules is very limited, because almost all situations are so enormously complicated that we cannot follow the plays of the game using the rules, much less tell what is going to happen next. We must therefore limit ourselves to the more basic question of the rules of the game, and if we know the rules, we consider that we understand the world. But how can you tell whether the rules, which we guess are really right, or, if we cannot analyze the game very well? There are, roughly speaking, 3 ways. First, there may be situations where nature has arranged, or we arrange nature, to be simple and to be so few parts that we can predict exactly what will happen, and thus we check how our rules work. In one corner of the board, these may be only a few chess pieces at work, and so that we can kind of figure out what is happening exactly. Now, I'm not going to go on, but they go on to the second and the third. But the idea is, if you heard what I said regarding limitations, regarding just understanding, regarding understanding the rules but not even knowing if they're all the rules, and how vast and how complicated and intertwined that everything is, that is kind of out there. then we'll come to understand that the geneticist who is meeting with, let's say, a reporter, is speaking about the genetic, let's say the genome project that carried on, and they're trying to find out where these, where they can help people, let's say, find the cancer gene, maybe get rid of something else that they inherited. And this lovely man, who is a geneticist, works with genetics, says to this person, after she's asking, well, do we have it? Do we have anything concrete? Did we found the cure? Did we find these certain genes that we're wanting to get? And the fella looks over to her and said, well, if you think we figured it out, do you think I'd still be bald? And he laughs. So the idea here really is to come to terms with science as a made-up word. Scientific method best describes what they're trying to understand by observation. Do we have all the rules? No. Can we best guess, and through things happening, then we can see how it's come about. But we may not know exactly what took place. We kind of can understand that if we practice enough, we're going to jump higher and higher, but only to a certain height, and that's it. The limitations come in. So what I want to kind of put out there is that science is definitely one of those words that keeps coming up. And when it comes to this event, understand that if you're not open in reading both sides of, let's say, both sides from science. Now, this is one of the things I think that people get confused from. They say there is science to back up the mass, science to back up this, the back up that, and there is no science. That has been spoken by many doctors, and other than a little bit of this, a little bit of that, they wear them in. I've actually, I've posted the link before about the doctor who's a surgeon, who's been a surgeon for decades, and I think 10,000 surgeries or more, and he tells you what he tells you about the mask. They wear the mask, and if you go and you actually look up, if you can find it, I find that sometimes that some of the things that I found before, it's not as easy to find again. So I apologize for if you're trying to look really hard. But in the published research, they actually say that they did research to determine whether or not the masks were needed in surgery. And the conclusion was they weren't needed in surgery. They didn't make any difference at all. Now, as the surgeon said, and bright, very bright thing for any of us to remember, is that if we're not well, then we shouldn't be going around people, vulnerable or not, or going to work. Now, what a person pointed out to me, we're having conversation, is that they're going to lose their job. They have work to do, and I've heard this being in corporate for almost a few decades, and yes, people said that they have to get things, so they're going in there. Am I saying that it's spreading? That doesn't mean it's absolutely spreading, but if you're vulnerable, if you have a suppressed immune system, there may be absolutely a potential where you are gaining the very things that help the body detox, and it's going to help your body detox because that's the spreading. So it's not black or white. The idea is we have way too many vulnerable people. We have too many increasing in cancer, increases in diabetes, and all you have to do is go onto their website, these not-for-profits, which really, how can I say about it? No, I'm not going to go there. But the idea is they have there's zero confidence. Now, let's say negative confidence that any research, any vaccine, any surgery, anything is going to help people with their cancer when they've been diagnosed cancer. Negative confidence people. they're only expecting it to go higher. Now ask the question, because in here Richard Feynman goes into saying we have to ask questions. I'm going to go through a few quotes of his after I talk a bit here. But sometimes we definitely get on our paths, and it is without question that when you want to sink your teeth into something, it is so much easier to actually hold on than it is to kind of open up and allow other things to filter in. It's like feels so good to make that decision and to hold that path here, but we have to remain open if possible. Well, I'm going to remain open. It's something one can do and remain open. The idea of science and its limitations is to understand that science can be manipulated. Science can not only be manipulated, science can actually be lies and put, how can I say it? You mean you have to, yeah, me, I can't show you and all that kind of stuff. Facebook doesn't allow that on this video. But the idea is there's been published research that hasn't even been done, and they were fined. There's been research where they cherry pick the numbers so that it turns out the way they want it to turn out. Now, we do that in everyday things anyway, so why would science be any different? Are they supposed to have people checking their work? Yes, in fact, there was a lovely lady who's from Ireland who speaks to this situation, actually runs a lab, and she actually spoke to that's part of her job, is to double check things. Now, if they post something up or publish research and they do not have, I guess I'm trying to think of the word she said, but if they don't have the right pieces in place, they have to take it down, or they can get fined, or the country can get fined. So there's some responsibility, and so, but there's so many of it goes, so many of these things go out, and I'm not sure if every publication has the same person, or every country has the same person doing the same thing. I'm always cognizant of reading the how can I say it, reading the published research and knowing that I don't have all the information. And even if I read, never mind just the abstract, the whole thing, the few pages, several pages, whatever it is, that the language is very important. The conclusion that they come, need more research, may. All of this language is immersed because, as Richard says, it's very complicated. And quite frankly, what complicates a lot of the research is they're doing it on people. When they eventually do it on people or animals, but there's so many parts and pieces to our our physiology, our biology, our chemistry, vibration, our meridians, our energy flows, all of that is something that makes a difference. The mind, that's why they use placebo effect. The mind in itself is so powerful, they don't understand it. And I always laugh or smile when somebody says they only know what 10% of the brain, 10% of the brain. And I'm going, well, you can't know if it's 10% if you don't know 100%. You can't know. If you don't know 100%, you cannot know whether it's 10%. It's a ridiculous, conundrum almost in some ways. So theories are out there, models are out there, and this is why we're in this predicament, but not exactly why. But if you understand and read the models, you understand that the model for this event was incorrect to begin with. Okay? It's only as good as the person who makes the model, and in some cases, as the other countries use the model, the inputs that go in, but the model itself can be faulty. It's like doing a puzzle, but you've created a table that is at different heights. It's up here, it's up here, and it just isn't suited for putting a puzzle on it. And there's many ways to weave the analogies to have you understand. But it is important for, in my opinion, humans, people, scientists as well, to understand the limitations of our understanding of the world, the universe, the physical body. They can't control it, people. That is fact. They cannot control them. Sure, they can go in and they can snip a nerve, and guess what? You have no pain because there's no nerve. There you go. It's gone. There's things they can do that just get rid of the problem. The gallbladder is telling you that it has too many gallstones. Well, let's not take out the gallstones. Let's take out the gallbladder, and the problem's over. No, the problem isn't over when they take out the gallbladder. What people go on to learn is they cannot eat the same way. Some are a little bit more strict than what others are. But it's clear that pieces in our body, doesn't have any purpose. That's entirely wrong, people. Entirely wrong. And that's why I spoke to common sense here. Science and common sense. There isn't any part of our body that doesn't have a purpose. Every piece has a purpose. The people who make you angry have a purpose. If we're going to get into the mind, the metaphysical and that stuff, they have a purpose. George Lynn, hi Cheryl. Yeah, for sharing. And yeah, my sister's on her way home and listening. Yes. Well, I hope everybody's listening here, because at the end of the day, it's not about what I know. It's not about what I understand. It's not for me to feel like I'm, how can I say it? I'm the one, who's bringing you this news. This news has already been out there. This news, science, of many ways of looking at things and understanding this has been out for decades. In fact, my book, All Guts, All Glory, was based on a doctor just over 100 years ago, and I think it filtered up, so other people wrote about it. That's how I learned about it. But he wrote a book about it, and he says in his book, okay, it's not a hardcover book, it's actually on here, but maybe I'll look it up, and his language is so colorful back then. But let's just say here is maybe not all the points kind of put together, but here's the thing. He was a medical doctor, and he decided what they were doing wasn't working. Medicines, surgery. And he decided what he would do is, off to the side, on his own time, for about 3 decades, he tried things. He did his own research. He probably found doctors in the past that said the same thing. The medicines don't work. The vaccines don't work. The surgery doesn't work. Well, it can work, cut it out, but it's not getting to the root cause. So he put together a lot of information to understand why it is that every disease comes about. It's going to be unique, yes. You've got to think common sense here. What's your source of stress? Right? What's your source of unhealthy habits? Is there anything perfect? No, perfect doesn't exist. But there is a feeling, and there's emotion, and there's stress, and they're all wrapped up together. They're all connected. And that's why sometimes you hear everything is connected. There is a connection. If there weren't a connection, then you'd be disconnected. Things would be disconnected, and they wouldn't be communicating. They wouldn't be helping each other. There wouldn't be growth. There wouldn't be any of that. So this doctor really did nail down a simplicity to understand how the body works, a simplicity that works with nature. Many of the, how can I say it, peoples of the past, although some of them are still around, pagans for example, they were very Celtic, very connected with the nature. The Native Americans, very connected with the nature. So these people on this planet, various ones around the world, very connected to nature. They appreciated nature. If you don't appreciate nature for what it is, appreciate how your body reacts to what you're doing to it, gives you signs, gives you pain, if you're doing something too much in the way of, athletic stuff, sports and things. But this is the idea. So I'm just trying to bring us all to a center space here with this event, a center space to step on them. And some people might step over to the left and go, I just want to believe the government. I'm most comfortable in believing the government. It makes me feel safe. I feel good. I feel comfortable with that. Others may step over to the right and go, wow, I have questions. They're answering my questions to the degree that opens up my eyes, opens up another side to what's going on. Doctors are reading it, are communicating the other side. And there's the other side to just every little piece about this event, the distancing, how they will say, and even the WHO says, we don't know what it is for this and that. Now I know I did do some early learning. They were doing in some labs to determine what distance and spread. I never ever did get to hear what the outcome is of that. I'm sure if I sneeze and my sneeze is actually has more, I'm just going to say chi, energy behind it, it's going to go further. So even sometimes when I'm listening to them and they're trying to come with absolutes to make people feel comfortable, there is still wiggle room and variations and ranges and things like that based on many different factors. Now, one of the key things is around understanding nature. So I'm going to go back to nature. This is our center. Our center is actually understanding nature. That's our center. The idea about viruses being bad. Now, I'll repeat this story. I don't mind repeating it because I think it's a wonderful thing to come to center with. Once upon a time, we were very afraid of, well, we must have been through science afraid, because otherwise we probably wouldn't care. We probably wouldn't look for it. Probably would just go. We probably understand how we need to feel better. Stay in bed, stay home, relax, drink plenty of fluids, and let's see if you get better. Now, they didn't know some other things at that point, and there'll be different things we can appreciate for medical today. Of course we can. So here we have it. Germs, all bad. No, they're not all bad. Bacteria, bad. Bacteria is bad. No, bacteria is not all bad. And we've learned that of most things. We have learned that. Viruses, bad, all bad. No, they're not all bad. This world, the nature that we live in, this world would not be like it is if we did not have viruses, bacteria, germs, if we want to call it, any of these microscopic things that we can't see. Now, they can see a microscope, but how many people here actually have a microscope that's going to be, or even understand what they're looking at? So the idea here is, yes, if the body is vulnerable, then things can happen. If you have a weak knee and you take off running, you have a potential to hurt that knee or to fall down, perhaps. Let's just say it that way. If you are vulnerable, then things are set up in the way that you have to understand, what does that mean? If you have severe allergies and it's pollen season of some sort, then I knew a fella that had to always check the pollen report on the news because he couldn't go out on some days, could not go out at all. But he was one of the guys that supported through the raw seal, was able to support the whole nervous system, the immune system, the connection in the body, bring down inflammation, and actually it didn't really matter what the pollen report was anymore. We do have these things of nature before us to use. So I think of herbs. I think of certain plants, I think of certain healing things like out in the sun, fresh air, rest. How many people get the rest they need to get these days? it's go, go, go. Go, 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 go. Adrenaline, adrenaline, adrenaline. Don't digest their food well. Deficiencies, built up toxicity, and diseases happen. It's very simple for the understanding of that. There's the dog making noise. Anyway, so I hope this makes sense. And the idea is, if we can come to center and agree on a few things, then we are going to understand that people are going to want to step on, in the front, to the left, to the right, to the front, to the back. And they'll go in the directions they want to go into that makes them feel comfortable, that makes sense to them. I'm not saying common sense, but makes sense to them, who they believe. Now I want to read a couple of quotes here. Happy to take questions. And, in the past, doing presentations, whether it was on nutrition, health, stress management, the omegas, healthy fats. And by the way, a number of researchers, hundreds, will believe that the unhealthy fats, the processed foods, the processed fats are not healthy for our brain. And what does the brain do but run the body? So now I'm just going to see here. Now I'm just looking at my video, and it is telling me that we're having trouble playing my video for whatever reason. Maybe the dog knocked it out. But maybe you can still hear me. If you can still hear me, say, yes, I can hear you. And I will continue with the quotes. And I'm not sure if anybody is able to very quickly just say, yep, I can hear you. Say yes, yes, yes. And if you can't, then obviously you're probably not hearing me, and there will be no response, and I was kicked off. But I'm going to read these quotes anyway, just in case nobody can get in. And I'm not sure if how this works when it comes to. Let's see if I can put a note. Can anyone hear me? Yep, I can see or hear. Okay, so my sister can hear and see me. That's good. All right, I'm going to read these quotes out from the scientist Richard Feynman. Feynman. I should hear somebody else say it. They'll actually open your eyes. I'll put the link to this down there so you can go through these quotes. Ponder the quote, meditate on these quotes. But here he is. I would rather have questions that can't be answered than answers that can't be questioned. Some of these I might have to read them twice, but I'm going to let you do that. Please read them, because when you put so much faith in science, when you say to me or write in any of these posts, the science, you got to follow the science, there's got to be science. People, the science is limited, and there is science on both sides here. End of story. Here's another one. Science is the belief in the ignorance of experts. I'm going to read that one again. Science is the belief in the ignorance of experts. Okay, very good one. Let's see. I haven't read all of these ones, but I'm going to read them out because the first few I did. It doesn't matter how beautiful your theory is. It doesn't matter how smart you are. If it doesn't agree with experiment, it's wrong. It doesn't matter how beautiful your theory is. It doesn't matter how smart you are. If it doesn't agree with experiment, it's wrong. So, and again, just for those people who are coming on, Richard Feynman is right up there with Einstein. He is, and other scientists that I've spoken with, or those people who consider themselves connected at the hip with science. I usually bring him up and they know who he is, and I tell them some of the things as far as introduction and science limit, and they're going, nope, that's not in there. We'll go buy the book, or most of them have the book. I say, go read it again, and I tell them the page number. I think it's 24. But they should read the whole introduction because he goes in there. So here's another quote. Religion is a culture of faith. Science is a culture of doubt. Next. Have no respect whatsoever for authority. Forget who said it, and instead look at what he starts with, where he ends up, and ask yourself, is it reasonable? Study hard what interests you the most in the most undisciplined, irreverent, and original manner possible. I like that one. So study hard what interests you the most in the most undisciplined, irreverent, and original manner possible. Very unique there. I like that one. You do not know anything until you have practiced. Now, I'll just bring up an example of that one. I've been practicing YDAN for 10 years, and after 7 years, I decided, well, people can follow along with me when we're on the Ireland trip. And I'd been teaching it for probably a year or more, a few classes, handful of classes, and somebody who teaches Qigong, Wushu master, Qigong he doesn't even like to use the word master. I totally agree with him, and Tai Chi. So he's been teaching them forever. I demonstrate it for him, and he says, I want to learn it. I like it. So I taught him how to do it, and in his, I'll call it wisdom, is he says, yes, I'm learning everything I can from you, and I want to practice it for a number of years before he actually teaches it, because it is his goal to teach it. He really likes it. He's been doing it every day now for over a year. And we still stay in touch. So that's Mr. David. Let's see if there's... I love this one. Don't pay attention to authorities. Think for yourself. I like that one. If you can't explain something to a first-year student, then you haven't really understood. It's got a lot of good ones here. There's so many. There's lots of them here. I think these are 25 of them here. If you thought that science was certain, well, that is just an error on your part. Brilliant, brilliant. I didn't know these existed. I really didn't know that Richard had these quotes. They surely add to just my idea here, science and bringing us to center, right? That's what this Live at 5 was for. It was to bring us to center. Now, some people say grounded, but what does that mean? Bring us to center. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to bring us to center, all of us to center. It doesn't matter you're on the left, you left, or you chose to step forward, or you step backwards, or to the right. Whichever way you chose, any of us choose, understand. Coming to center and understanding that is understanding the limitations on science. Okay? That's really all I had today, other than I'm going to add this last little bit here, and this is a study in kind of like in the metaphysical, the psychology, all of that kind of all wrapped up, and that is around one word. Actually, there's two words. They're two 4-letter words. I like 4-letter words. I have a quiz for my presentation at the end. It's a 4-letter word, but these are two 4-letter words, and these two 4-letter words couldn't be any more, they're not even opposites at all. It's almost like, I'm trying to think of the word, and I don't want to put words out there that are not describing it well. I'm just going to say the words because I really do not want to miss the right words here. So fear. A lot of people, everybody here, I remember giving a presentation to first year teachers. So it was their first year, and it is their, as the person who was in charge of bringing this conference together, somehow working at TDSB, at head office, corporate office, whatever, and I'd always ask her some questions. So why are you having me come in to talk about health and nutrition and managing stress and stuff like that? And I had 3 hours in the afternoon. They did something in the morning at 3 hours. Didn't even have to have no way to have a PowerPoint presentation. I just intuitively would listen to the questions people had initially as I was there. But specifically at the break. And at the break, people would come up. So by this time, I've had a good hour and a half to go through some things and interact with them. And the questions I was getting is, well, Cheryl, I think in the beginning and also at the break, my mother, my brother, both died, of heart attacks, and I don't want to have a heart attack. Because I said, ask me some questions and then I'll weave them into the presentation in the afternoon. So somewhere it was around cancer, and I remember heart. So it was heart health, circulation, heart health, and cancer primarily. So I went through the afternoon and basically gave them enough little things to be able to bring up when I asked them the question. Okay, what is one thing you're going to change in 24 hours? In the next 24 hours, what are you going to change? Now, based on my talk, some people said, well, I'm going to go to one coffee. Others said, I'm going to give up pop. I'm going to give up diet pop. There might have been a couple simple ones. So it was mostly around giving up. So the idea after that, I said, okay, listen up. If you haven't heard anything I've said for this presentation, for the time we've had together, this one thing, I want to explain this one thing. When you do anything, when you choose anything, you're going to choose. We only have two choices. So choices are a gift, right? So choices are a gift. That's why you can choose what you want. Your opinion matters. You've chose what you wanted to choose. What do you want to believe, or whatever it is. So, but there's two reasons why underlying the choices that we've made, or the things that we do, or the things that we don't do. And one is fear, and the other one is love. Now, I know it kind of can absolutely go and explain these go on to explain these a little bit more. But understand, you are making choices based on fear, or you're making choices based on love. Most of what I see when it comes to this event is out of fear and love. Fear and love. They love their loved ones, so they fear that they're going to get sick and leave them. Going to get sick and pass. They're going to get sick and pass. So there's a fear and a love going on here at the same time. And it's very strong, these two. Very strong. That's why sometimes it doesn't, that's why sometimes the conversation and the writing that kind of comes in for these posts, whatever side, left, right, front, or back, that people have chosen, that's why there's a lot of emotion coming in sometimes. And very colorful words sometimes, from stupid to idiot to all those kind of things. But understand that underlying is fears and also love. So there's lots of emotion stuff going on. and people respond like that, and that's why they're responding the way they're responding to something being said here, or either side, right? So it's best that we don't push. It's best that we don't pull. It's best that we don't corner. It's best that we don't gang up. It's best that we sit back and understand these things, both on science to bring us center. Just this, there's other things to explain to bring us, that brings us into center, but science keeps coming up when it comes to what we're sharing. Now, common sense is key and is very important. And yes, some of us have a background, some of us have a mind that works the way it does, and we're able to look at things and discern things and understand and to come and to question and all of that. Some of us haven't. What I do feel here going on is that there's a boss, and a boss is telling the people in the newsroom, you have to say this. You have to not say this. There's a boss. I'm just going to bring that to center. Agree with me if you are working for a corporation, if you are at work and you have a company that you're working for, that there's a boss. Just come to center on that there are bosses. Now, people like me, who's an entrepreneur, yes, I was in corporate for 25, 30 years, but I'm an entrepreneur now, so I don't have a boss other than myself. But bosses exist. But I'm not the one who's going to be reporting on CBC, because I'm not working for that company. They won't let me. They don't want me to actually be saying stuff because they won't like what I'm saying, so I won't have a job anymore. You see how that works? So if we understand the matrix of business, the matrix of corporations, the matrix where money is to be made, the things that are being spoken, the things that are, how can I say, the things that must be said or the things that must not be said. Think of, you've heard this, diplomatic, speaking diplomatically, put your political hat on, say the right things. I mean, this exists, people. So come to center and understand bosses exist. I'm going to leave it at that because there's many ways, there's many, 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 many things that we can come to center on. And that's what I want to kind of put out here, is we got to come to center. Even though you're stepping to the right, stepping to the left, stepping forward, backwards, whatever you have chose, because that is your prerogative, that is your gift, that is you as a human being, you get to choose. And you don't get to choose for somebody else. And the government doesn't get to choose. In this case, Canada, the government works for the people. Sometimes it doesn't feel like that. Sometimes we put them in positions to make decisions, and they're not very good decisions. But you have to understand, things have been a certain way, probably for decades, if not centuries, if not millennia. And when we think of bullying, bullying just doesn't happen in the schoolroom, schoolyard, schools. Bullying happens at all levels and all ages. Yes, it does. And so there you go. I'm going to breathe now. But anyway, I can't see my video, so I'm just going to, any comments, any questions, any way you're feeling, understand that when people share their opinions, it's not about pushing. It's not supposed to be about pushing or shoving or pulling or anything like that. It's just an opinion. Because coming to center is not focusing on, I move my books around here, it's Power versus Force. I probably have it behind me. Set up a bookshelf or two for just the books, but in there, and I'm just going to leave you with all of this. So if we can come to center, that should feel good. that should feel neutral. That should feel that we're not angry, we're not depressed, we're not sad, we're not lonely. And at the same time, it's not going to feel like we're that passionate and we're the, all these, love, in love, those kind of feelings. No, we're kind of in the center place here where you can still lower your vibration, where you go with your feelings, anger, depression, sadness, or you can raise your vibration by doing the things that you like, by doing things that make you laugh, see the lighter side of things. It gives you joy, makes you feel peace, just gives you this warm, fuzzy feeling because you've did an act of kindness for somebody. And that's where I'm going to leave you today, is that even though I'm trying to come to center, let's all come to center, we may be on different sides of the circle. If we can think of center being actually a circle, then that's okay. But the idea is everybody in that circle will benefit from raising your vibration, and we all can raise our vibration. And it's not because somebody else is bringing us, that's an excuse. If somebody else is this, there's some growth and some things to kind of do and to look at. There is. So we want to raise our vibration, end of story. And maybe some people are going, nope, I got a lot of anger to get out. Yeah, that sometimes happens. There is maybe a progression of raising the vibration in the lower vibration in order to get to that center, in order to get to that center of feeling and vibration. Anyway, I'm not going to leave you all. I'm going to be here, but I'm going to say goodbye for now with the video today, Thursday, September the 24th. I'm going to wish everybody a wonderful evening. Hope you can find something that brings you joy, some act of kindness, some thoughts, even thoughts of kindness you can do. If you're driving, you can think of thoughts of kindness, and that raises the vibration. Anyway, I hope all of this makes sense, and if it does or if it doesn't or whatever, ask your questions. I'll put the link for Richard down below. If you want the name in the book, let me know, ask the question. I will post it there as well. But I think that's really it. No, not going to talk about that today. I'm going to leave those things for another day, whether it's tomorrow or whether it is Sunday, Monday, or anything like that. Okay, so bye for now, everyone. I'm glad you're here to listen about this information. If for some it's repetitive, well, that's the way it is. Sometimes repetition is in line with practice, reminders, and we're all good that way. So take care, bye for now, and enjoy the rest of your day your way. Bye for now.